The rain tapped steadily against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Daniel Whitmore's penthouse office, a rhythm that seemed to mock his restlessness. He sat behind an enormous mahogany desk, papers neatly stacked. A half-drained cup of coffee cooling beside him. On the surface, Daniel had everything. He was the CEO of Whitmore Enterprises, one of the most powerful companies in the city. He was known for his sharp business acumen, his commanding presence in the boardroom, and the fortune he had built after years of relentless work. But beneath that perfectly pressed suit, and carefully measured tone, was a man carrying an invisible weight. Daniel wasn't just a CEO, he was also a single father. And no matter how many headlines praised his genius, or how many board members applauded his strategies, he returned each night to a quiet home, where the laughter of his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was his only anchor to a softer world. On this particular evening, Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the invitation on his desk. It was embossed with gold lettering, the annual Midtown Gala. Every year, the city's wealthiest families, politicians, and power brokers gathered under glittering chandeliers to drink champagne, make deals, and flaunt their carefully curated lives. For Daniel, attendance wasn't optional. His board expected him there, smiling for photographs, mingling with investors, exuding the charm of a man who had it all together. The problem was simple. They expected him to bring a date. He ran a hand through his dark hair, sighing. For years, Daniel had thrown himself into work and fatherhood, leaving no room for romance. Since his wife passed away when Lily was just a toddler, he had closed that chapter of his life with a silent vow. No one could ever replace her. The thought of introducing someone new into Lily's world felt like betrayal. And yet the board had grown restless. Whispers circled in the media about the lonely widower CEO, about how investors worried he was too focused on his daughter to make rational decisions. It wasn't just about image. It was about power. He stared at the invitation, his jaw tightening. The gala was only a week away, and the pressure was suffocating. Several members of the board had already hinted, some not so subtly, that a man in his position needed stability, the kind of family image that reassured shareholders. Without it, they might start pushing him out of his own empire. "Daddy." The soft voice pulled him out of his thoughts. Daniel looked up to see Lily standing in the doorway of his office, wearing pink pajamas decorated with tiny stars. Her golden brown hair was messy from play, and she clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit in one hand. His stern expression softened instantly. "Hey, sweetheart. Why aren't you in bed yet?" How she padded into the room, her small feet silent against the polished wood floor. "I couldn't sleep. The thunder's too loud." She climbed into the big leather chair beside him, curling her legs under her. "What are you reading?" Daniel closed the invitation quickly and set it aside. "Just some boring work papers. Nothing you'd like." But Lily's sharp little eyes lilied the shimmer of gold embossing. She reached for it with curious fingers, and before Daniel could stop her, she was squinting at the words. "Gala, what's that?" "It's like a party," Daniel explained with a gentle smile, "for adults, very fancy, very boring." Her face lit up. "Like with music and dresses?" "Yes. Something like that." She tilted her head, her curiosity deepening. "Are you going to go?" Daniel hesitated. "I have to." "Will you take me?" she asked hopefully, her big hazel eyes shimmering. His heart twisted. "Not this time, sweetheart. It's not really a place for kids." Her little mouth curved into a pout. "Oh, so who are you taking then?" The question hit him like a stone. He had no answer. For a moment, he just looked at her, unsure what to say. Finally he forced a light chuckle. "I don't know yet. Maybe no one. But you can't go alone." Lily insisted, her voice carrying the simple wisdom of a child. "All the stories say princes take princesses to parties." Daniel smiled faintly. "I'm not a prince, Lily. You are to me," she said softly, resting her head against his arm. The room went quiet. Daniel felt that familiar ache in his chest. The one that came whenever he thought of the life he used to have, the wife he lost, the mother Lily barely remembered. He wanted to protect Lily from loneliness, from the feeling of being incomplete, but he didn't know how. That night, after tucking Lily back into bed, Daniel returned to his office. The invitation still sat on his desk, gleaming under the lamp. He picked it up, staring at it for a long moment, before finally reaching for his phone. Scrolling through contacts, he paused on a number he never thought he'd use. A discreet agency, recommended by a colleague months ago in passing, that provided professional companions for events like these. Nothing personal, nothing permanent. Just someone who could play the role of girlfriend for a night. Daniel's finger hovered over the call button. The very idea felt wrong, artificial. But what choice did he have? He couldn't show up alone, not this year. Not when the stakes were so high. Finally, he pressed dial. The line connected, and a calm, professional voice greeted him. "Good evening, Elite Accompaniments. How may we help you?" Daniel cleared his throat, lowering his voice as though confessing a crime. "I need someone for a gala. Just for one night." "Of course, Mr. Whitmore." The voice replied smoothly. As though this were the most ordinary request in the world. "We'll send you our best." As he ended the call, Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the city lights flickering far below. He told himself this was only business, nothing more, a temporary solution to silence the board, protect his company, and keep life with Lily stable. But deep down, a small, restless part of him wondered if he was opening a door he had sworn to keep shut. And upstairs, Lily dreamed peacefully, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Unaware that her innocent wish, that her daddy would find someone to smile with, was about to collide with Daniel's carefully built walls. The following Saturday afternoon, the Whitmore mansion felt unusually alive. The sun streamed in through tall glass windows, scattering golden light across the marble floors. A faint scent of fresh flowers hung in the air. Daniel's housekeeper, Mrs. Green, had filled vases with lilies and roses, as though anticipating a special guest. Daniel, however, paced the living room like a man preparing for a hostile board meeting. His suit was already pressed, his tie knotted perfectly, but his nerves betrayed him. Hiring someone to pose as his girlfriend, it was absurd, reckless even. What if she embarrassed him? What if the agency sent someone shallow, pretentious, or worse, someone who saw this as a golden ticket into his life? He checked his watch again. 5 minutes until she was supposed to arrive. From upstairs came the sound of hurried footsteps. Lily appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her favorite blue dress swishing around her knees. She had insisted on dressing up, convinced that Daddy's friend must be someone important. "Do I look okay?" she asked breathlessly, holding out the hem of her dress as she descended. Daniel smiled despite himself. "You look beautiful, sweetheart. But remember, she's not here to see you. She's just..." He trailed off, unsure how to explain. Lily tilted her head. "Just what?" "Just someone helping me at the party," Daniel finished vaguely. Lily shrugged, unconvinced. "Well, I'm going to say hi anyway." Before Daniel could argue, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the grand hall like a summons. His heart gave a quick, anxious beat. Mrs. Green bustled to the door, her expression curious. She opened it, and for a moment, the entire house seemed to pause. There she was, Emma. She stood framed in the doorway, the late afternoon light casting a soft glow on her. She wasn't what Daniel had imagined when he made that call to the agency. He had pictured someone glamorous, dripping in jewels, the kind of woman who thrived in the spotlight. Instead, Emma wore a simple cream blouse tucked neatly into a knee-length skirt, paired with modest heels. Her chestnut hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her warm brown eyes immediately softened the room. She smiled politely at Mrs. Green before her gaze shifted inside, and landed on Daniel. For a fraction of a second, their eyes locked. There was no arrogance in her expression, no calculated charm. Just calm composure. "Mr. Whitmore?" she asked, her voice gentle but steady. Daniel cleared his throat, suddenly aware of the stiffness in his posture. "Yes, come in." Emma stepped across the threshold, carrying nothing but a small purse. She moved with quiet grace, like someone used to fitting seamlessly into any environment without demanding attention. Before Daniel could say more, a small blur of blue darted forward.
"Hey, I'm Lily."
Lily stood directly in front of Emma, chin tilted up proudly, eyes wide with curiosity. Emma's face immediately softened. Instead of simply offering a polite hello, she crouched down so she was eye level with the little girl. "Hello, Lily," she said warmly. "It's very nice to meet you. That's a beautiful dress you're wearing." Lily's cheeks flushed pink. "Thank you. My daddy says we're going to a big party." Emma glanced at Daniel briefly, then back at Lily. "That sounds exciting. Are you helping him get ready? I tried to fix his tie. But he wouldn't let me, Lily said with a mischievous giggle. Emma laughed softly. Dads can be stubborn like that. Daniel watched the exchange in silence, caught off guard. He had expected professionalism, maybe even an air of detachment. But Emma's kindness felt unforced. She wasn't just genuine Lily, she was genuinely engaged, and Lily, who was usually shy around strangers, was already glowing like she'd found a new friend. Mrs. Green, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow at Daniel as if to say, well, you could have done worse. Why don't you show Emma your doll? Daniel suggested quickly, trying to redirect the moment. Lily dashed upstairs without hesitation, already chattering about how she'd been trying to braid the doll's hair. Emma straightened, smoothing her skirt, and turned back to Daniel. For a second, the air shifted between them. Without Lily as a buffer, the reality of the arrangement pressed in. I should be clear, Daniel said, his voice lower now. Tonight is business, nothing more. You'll play the part, and when it's over, that's it. Emma nodded calmly. I understand. Her lack of defensiveness threw him. Most people in her position would have offered reassurances or tried to charm him. Emma simply accepted the boundaries, as though she respected them. Still, he couldn't resist testing. You've done this before. She gave a small, wry smile. Let's just say I know how to blend in at parties. Before Daniel could respond, Lily returned, clutching her doll. She proudly held it out to Emma. Her name's Rosie. But I can't get her hair to stay pretty. Emma took the doll carefully, examining it with exaggerated seriousness. Well, Rosie is very lovely. But I think she needs just a little twist here and a pin there. She pulled a hairpin from her own purse and, with quick fingers, wove the doll's hair into a neat braid. Lily's eyes widened. Wow! You're amazing. Emma handed the doll back. There. Now Rosie is ready for the party too. Lily threw her arms around Emma's neck in a sudden hug. Emma froze for a heartbeat, startled, then returned the embrace gently. Daniel felt something stir in his chest at the sight, a warmth he hadn't invited. A warmth he wasn't sure he wanted. All right, Lily, he said briskly, clearing his throat. Emma and I need to finish preparing. Okay, Lily said, skipping off toward the kitchen, already chatting to Mrs. Green about Rosie's new hairstyle. Left alone again, Daniel looked at Emma. She met his gaze without flinching, her expression calm but unreadable. I wasn't expecting, he began, then stopped. Expecting what? She asked softly. He shook his head. Never mind. But as he turned away, straightening his cufflinks, one thought lingered stubbornly in his mind. This was supposed to be business, detached, temporary. So why did it already feel like Emma belonged here? The Midtown Grand Hotel shimmered like a jewel against the night sky. Dozens of luxury cars lined the driveway, their headlights flashing as valet attendants hurried back and forth. Inside, the grand ballroom glowed with golden chandeliers, polished marble floors, and towering arrangements of white roses. Waiters in crisp black uniforms glided between glittering guests, trays balanced effortlessly in their hands. For Daniel it was the battlefield he knew too well. Every handshake, every smile, every perfectly timed comment mattered. But tonight felt different. Tonight, he wasn't walking in alone. The car door opened, and Emma stepped out beside him. She wore a midnight, blue gown that hugged her figure elegantly without being ostentatious. Her hair, swept into soft waves, caught the light as she turned, her eyes meeting his with a quiet steadiness. She didn't look like someone hired for the role. She looked like she belonged. And that unsettled him. You ready? He asked, adjusting his cufflinks to distract himself. Emma gave a faint smile. I've been to a few parties before, Mr. Whitmore. I'll manage. Still so calm. Still so unbothered. Daniel couldn't decide if it irritated him or impressed him. Inside, the crowd turned as they entered. Conversations faltered, eyes flicked toward them. Daniel felt the familiar weight of judgment, but tonight, for the first time in years, he wasn't the lonely widower CEO. Tonight he was a man with a striking woman by his side. Whispers began immediately. Is that Whitmore? Who's she? Finally brought someone. Daniel straightened his shoulders, guiding Emma with a hand at her back. She walked gracefully, acknowledging nods with polite smiles. Never clinging too tightly but never straying either. Perfect balance. Daniel. A booming voice greeted them near the champagne fountain. Richard Crawley, a board member with too much money and too little tact, clapped him on the shoulder. His eyes immediately slid to Emma appraising. "And who is this vision?" Daniel opened his mouth, but Emma was quicker. She extended her hand, her smile flawless. "Emma. A friend of Daniel's. It's lovely to meet you." Richard's eyes widened slightly at her confidence, then softened into charm. "Charmed, my dear. Absolutely charmed." As they moved on, Daniel leaned slightly toward her. "You didn't have to. Smile and shake hands." Emma murmured, still smiling as though nothing were amiss. "That's half of what these events are. Isn't it?" He almost laughed, almost. The night unfolded like a carefully orchestrated play. Every time someone approached, an investor, a politician, a rival CEO, Emma adapted. She listened attentively, offered clever remarks when needed, and drew attention away when Daniel seemed cornered. She wasn't overbearing, but she wasn't invisible either. It was uncanny. At one point, an older woman with diamond earrings leaned close, whispering with false sweetness. "We've all been so worried about you, Daniel. Raising Lily all alone, such a burden for one man." Before Daniel could bristle, Emma's hand slipped gently over his arm. Her smile didn't falter as she replied, "Burden? Hardly. Lily is the brightest, kindest little girl I've ever met. And Daniel is a wonderful father. Anyone who spends 5 minutes with them can see that." The woman blinked, momentarily silenced, before offering a weak smile and retreating. Daniel stared at Emma, a little stunned. She hadn't just played her role, she had defended him. Protected him. Later, during dinner, the two of them sat at a round table surrounded by executives and socialites. The chandeliers above sparkled like constellations. Daniel spoke about the company's projects, while Emma chimed in with thoughtful questions that impressed even the most skeptical listeners. At one point, when the waiter set down dessert, Daniel leaned closer. "You're good at this." Emma arched an eyebrow. "What?" "At making it look real." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Maybe that's because I'm not pretending as much as you think." For the first time that evening, Daniel had no reply. The orchestra struck up a waltz, couples drifting onto the dance floor. Richard Crawley, now a few glasses of wine deep, grinned at Daniel. "Go on, Whitmore. Show us you still remember how to dance." Daniel almost refused, but Emma rose smoothly, extending her hand with a mischievous tilt of her head. "Shall we?" He hesitated, then took her hand. The music slowed around them as they moved onto the dance floor. Daniel placed a hand at her waist, guiding her carefully. To his surprise, Emma followed effortlessly. Her movements fluid, her gaze steady on his. For a moment the noise of the ballroom faded. It was just the two of them, turning slowly beneath the golden light. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. A lightness. A flicker of joy he thought had been buried with his past. "You're full of surprises," he murmured. Emma's eyes sparkled. "You just don't know me yet." When the song ended, applause filled the room. But Daniel barely heard it. He was too aware of the warmth of Emma's hand, the steadiness of her presence, and the dangerous realization that this no longer felt like an act. As the evening wound down, more whispers followed them, but they were different now. Admiring. Proof investors smiled at him with newfound respect, board members exchanged satisfied looks. Daniel had given them what they wanted. The image of a stable, charming man with a partner at his side. Yet as they stepped out into the cool night air, Daniel knew the truth was far more complicated. Emma wasn't just saving his reputation. She was starting to save pieces of him he hadn't realized were broken. And that terrified him more than any hostile takeover ever could. The ride home from the gala was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Daniel leaned back in the sleek leather seat of the car, loosening his tie. The city lights flickered across his face, reflecting the exhaustion of a long night. Yet beneath his usual composure, something unfamiliar stirred, something dangerously close to contentment. Emma sat beside him, her posture relaxed, gazing out at the passing skyline. She hadn't spoken much since they left the hotel. She didn't need to. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was steady, almost companionable. Daniel glanced at her briefly. In the ballroom, under the weight of countless eyes, she had been flawless. But here, without chandeliers or whispered judgments, she seemed softer, more real. He caught himself staring too long and cleared his throat. "You did well tonight. Better than I expected." Emma turned to him. One eyebrow arched. That's your version of a compliment. He allowed a faint smirk. Don't get used to it. Her quiet laugh filled the car, and for a moment, the city outside faded away. By the time they reached the mansion, the hour was late. The house was dark except for a single lamp glowing in the living room window. Mrs. Green had already retired, but Lily, predictably, was still awake. As soon as the front door opened, small feet pattered across the marble floor. "Daddy!" Lily rushed toward him, her stuffed rabbit clutched tightly in her arms. Daniel bent down, scooping her up. She wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. "You were supposed to be asleep," he chided gently. "I couldn't," she mumbled. Then she peeked over his shoulder and spotted Emma. Her face lit up instantly. "You came back," Emma smiled, setting her purse down. "I did, and your dad and I survived a very long party. Was it boring?" Lily asked curiously. "Some parts," Emma admitted with a playful wink. "But your daddy was very good at pretending otherwise." Lily giggled, and Daniel shot Emma a look that was half stern, half amused. They moved into the living room, where the remnants of Lily's evening, coloring books, crayons, a half-built puzzle, were scattered on the rug. Daniel set Lily down, expecting her to grow drowsy now that her excitement had passed. But instead, she took Emma's hand and tugged her toward the couch. "Can you sit with me for a minute?" Lily asked hopefully. Emma glanced at Daniel, uncertain. "She should be in bed," Daniel said quickly. But Lily's pleading eyes made it clear his authority was fragile at best. Emma lowered herself onto the couch, and Lily snuggled up against her without hesitation. "Just for a little while," she whispered. Daniel watched, torn between irritation and something far more dangerous, longing. He stood a few feet away, arms crossed, but the scene unfolding before him chipped away at his defenses. Emma smoothed back Lily's hair, her touch instinctively gentle. "Did you wait up just to see us?" "Yes," Lily admitted. "I wanted to know if Daddy had fun." "He never has fun at parties." Daniel exhaled, shaking his head. "That's because parties aren't fun, sweetheart. They're work, not if you dance," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Did you dance?" Emma's smile widened. "We did." Lily's eyes sparkled. "See? Daddy. That's fun." Before Daniel could argue, Lily turned back to Emma, her little voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that carried through the quiet room. "Can you stay forever?" The words hung in the air like a dropped glass, fragile and impossible to ignore. Emma froze, her hand still resting on Lily's hair. Her eyes flickered toward Daniel, searching for guidance. But he looked just as stunned. "Lily," Daniel began, his voice carefully measured. "Emma isn't." But Lily cut him off, sitting up with sudden determination. "I mean it, Daddy. I like her. She's nice. And she listens, and she made Rosie's hair pretty. I don't want her to leave." Her small arms wrapped tightly around Emma's waist, as though sheer will could anchor her there. Daniel's throat tightened. He had faced hostile boardrooms, multi-million-dollar negotiations, the crushing loss of his wife, but nothing made him feel as unsteady as his daughter's simple plea. Emma shifted slightly, her expression caught between tenderness and restraint. She placed a hand over Lily's, her voice soft. "That's very sweet of you, Lily. But I can't just." She hesitated, glancing again at Daniel. "Stay forever." Lily's lips trembled. "Why not, Daddy? Can't she?" Daniel felt his carefully constructed world tilting. He wanted to say no, to draw the line firmly, to remind Lily, and himself, that this was temporary, a transaction, nothing more. But the words caught in his chest. Emma looked at him, her eyes steady but gentle. She wasn't pushing, wasn't asking for anything. But in her gaze, Daniel saw the reflection of his own fear, that maybe Lily wasn't just lonely, maybe they both were. The silence stretched, heavy and raw. Finally Daniel crouched beside the couch, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "Emma was here tonight to help Daddy at the party. She's very kind, and we're both lucky to have met her. But sometimes people can't stay as long as we'd like." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "But I want her to." The ache in Daniel's chest was almost unbearable. He glanced at Emma again, searching for an anchor. To his surprise she offered him a faint, reassuring smile, not for herself, but for him. Emma leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "Tell you what," she said gently, I can't promise forever. But I can promise that tonight, I'll sit with you until you fall asleep. How's that? Lily considered, her lower lip wobbling, then nodded reluctantly. She curled back against Emma's side, clinging to her as though afraid she'd vanish. Daniel stood, retreating to the edge of the room, his emotions a storm he couldn't show. He watched as Emma stroked Lily's hair, humming softly, her presence calming the child into drowsiness. Slowly, Lily's breathing evened out, her hand loosening its grip as sleep claimed her. When Emma finally looked up, her eyes met Daniel's across the quiet room. Neither spoke, but everything they couldn't say pressed between them. This wasn't part of the arrangement. And yet, as Daniel watched the two most unexpected pieces of his life fit together so naturally, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning after the gala, the Whitmore mansion carried a softness it rarely held. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, spilling across the polished floors and filling the rooms with golden warmth. For once, Daniel wasn't rushing off to a meeting or buried in calls. Instead, he stood in the doorway of the kitchen, his tie loosened, coffee mug in hand, watching a scene that both unsettled and soothed him. At the center of the kitchen island, flour dusted the marble like snow. Mixing bowls and measuring cups were scattered in cheerful chaos. And there, standing on a small stool with her hair tied up in a messy ponytail, was Lily. Her cheeks were smudged with flour, her little hands busy stirring cookie dough. Beside her stood Emma. Calm, patient, smiling as though she belonged there. She guided Lily's small hands with her own, showing her how to fold the chocolate chips into the mixture, without spilling them everywhere. Every so often, she leaned down to whisper encouragement, and Lily giggled, her laughter ringing brighter than any chandelier Daniel had ever stood beneath. Remember, Emma said gently, the trick is to stir slowly, like this. See? That way everything mixes evenly. Like magic, Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide. Exactly like magic, Emma replied with a smile. Daniel's grip tightened on the coffee mug. He hadn't asked Emma to stay the night. In fact, after Lily had fallen asleep, he'd expected Emma to quietly leave, as per their unspoken agreement. But she hadn't. She had stayed. Not because she was paid to. Not because the arrangement required it, but because Lily had asked, and Emma had listened. Now, watching them together, Daniel felt the sharp edge of something he'd tried to bury for years, longing. Longing for mornings like this, for laughter echoing through his home, for the warmth of another presence filling the silence that had haunted them both for so long. But longing was dangerous. He cleared his throat, stepping fully into the kitchen. What's going on here? Lily's head whipped around, her face lighting up. Daddy! We're making cookies for breakfast. Daniel arched an eyebrow. Cookies? For breakfast? Emma hid a smile behind her hand. Don't worry, Mr. Whitmore, she had cereal first. This is dessert research. Research, Daniel repeated dryly, setting his mug down. He crossed the room, brushing a bit of flour from Lily's nose. You're going to spoil us, Emma. Lily giggled. I told you she should stay forever. The words, innocent yet piercing, hit Daniel like they had the night before. He glanced at Emma quickly. She kept her expression composed, but her eyes betrayed something deeper. Hesitation, vulnerability, maybe even hope. Why don't you go wash your hands, sweetheart? Daniel said gently, giving Lily a little nudge toward the sink. As soon as Lily skipped away, he turned to Emma. You didn't have to do this. Emma shrugged lightly, though her voice was quieter now. She asked, and I didn't mind. Daniel studied her, the sharp lines of his CEO exterior warring with the man inside. You're making this complicated. Emma met his gaze steadily. Am I? Or is it already complicated? And we're just pretending it isn't. The honesty in her tone disarmed him. For years no one had spoken to him that way. Everyone around him either tiptoed carefully or demanded something from him. But Emma. She saw past the title, past the walls. And that terrified him even more than it comforted him. Before he could respond, Lily came bounding back, her hands dripping wet from washing, splashing little drops across the floor. She grabbed Emma's hand again, pulling her toward the oven. Come on, they're ready. The timer dinged, and soon the kitchen filled with the sweet scent of warm chocolate. Lily squealed with delight as Emma carefully slid the tray from the oven, setting it down to cool. When the cookies were finally safe to eat, Lily insisted they each take one. The three of them sat together at the counter, biting into gooey, melted chocolate chips. Best breakfast ever, Lily declared proudly, crumbs on her chin. Daniel chuckled, reaching over to wipe her face with a napkin. You'd say that even if they burned. They didn't burn, Lily shot back, pointing at Emma. Because she helped. Emma laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Teamwork makes perfect cookies. For a while they ate in comfortable silence. Daniel couldn't remember the last time his home had felt so alive. He glanced at Emma again, noticing how naturally she fit there. How effortlessly she moved in sync with Lily's energy. And then Lily, in her blunt, childlike way, shattered his thoughts once more. Daddy, she said, swinging her legs from the stool. Can Emma stay forever now? Daniel froze, cookie halfway to his mouth. His eyes flicked to Emma's, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Emma set her cookie down slowly, her expression gentle but uncertain. Lily, she began softly, but Lily's pleading eyes stopped her. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He could dismiss it, laugh it off, remind Lily of reality. But the truth sat heavy in his heart. He didn't want Emma to leave either. He took a deep breath, setting his own cookie aside. Sweetheart, he said carefully. Forever is a very big word. Lily frowned. But don't you want her to? The room went still. Daniel's gaze locked with Emma's. For the first time in years, he let his guard slip, just a little. Yes, he admitted quietly. I think I do. Emma's eyes widened, her lips parting as she wasn't sure she'd heard him right. Daniel turned fully toward her now, his voice lower, rougher. I don't know what this is yet, Emma. I don't know what it could be. But I do know that you've already given my daughter something I couldn't. And you've given me something too. Emma swallowed, her composure wavering. And what's that? Daniel's answer was simple, but heavy with meaning. Hope. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken emotions. Then Lily broke it with her usual innocence, clapping her hands. So that means she's staying. Emma laughed through the tears that threatened to spill, shaking her head. We'll see, Lily. We'll see. But as Daniel looked at her, his heart told him the truth. It wasn't about an arrangement anymore. It wasn't about pretending for the board or protecting his image. It was about family. A new beginning. And maybe, just maybe, forever.